The coffee was cold by the time Daniel sat down to drink it. That was how most of his mornings went. He would make a cup, set it on the counter, and then spend the next 20 minutes tying small shoes, brushing tangled hair, and finding a missing backpack that was somehow always behind the couch. His daughter, Lily, was 7 years old. She had her mother's eyes and her father's stubborn chin. She also had a habit of asking questions at the worst possible moments. "Daddy, why don't we have a mom like other kids?" she asked one Tuesday morning, her toast half-eaten. Daniel stopped moving. He picked up his cold coffee and took a slow sip. "We have each other," he said quietly. "That's a lot." Lily seemed to think about that. Then she nodded, picked up her toast, and kept eating. Daniel watched her for a moment longer than he needed to. There was something about that little girl that made every hard day feel worth it. And lately, there had been a lot of hard days. He was about to start a new job. A real one. The kind he had been working toward for 3 long years. But nobody at that office knew who he really was. Not yet. Daniel Carter had not always been a single father eating cold coffee at a cluttered kitchen table. 5 years ago, he was the quiet co-founder of a small tech company called Nova Solutions. He and his partner Marcus had started it from a rented garage, working nights and weekends while Daniel's wife, Sarah, supported the family. When Nova began to grow, everything felt possible. Then, 2 years in, Sarah got sick. Suddenly, nothing else mattered. Daniel stepped back from the company. He let Marcus take the lead. He spent every spare hour at hospitals, at home, making soup, reading bedtime stories to a confused little girl who kept asking when mommy was coming home. Sarah passed away on a quiet Thursday afternoon in October. Lily was 4. Daniel was 31 and completely lost. He sold most of his shares quietly. He moved to a smaller city. He focused on being a father first. But Marcus kept him looped in. Nova kept growing. And when the company expanded and opened a new regional office in the city where Daniel now lived, Marcus called him. "Come back," Marcus said. "Just as a silent observer, at first. Walk in like a regular employee. See what we have. Then decide." Daniel agreed. Nobody at the new office would know his name, his history, or his title. The new office was bright and modern, all glass walls and clean desks. Daniel walked in on his first day wearing a plain blue shirt and carrying a paper cup of coffee, warm this time, for once. The regional manager was a woman named Brenda. She was sharp, organized, and clearly proud of the team she had built. She greeted new staff in the lobby herself. She looked Daniel up and down quickly. Her smile stayed, but something behind her eyes shifted. "You're the temp hire. Daniel Carter?" "That's me," he said. "Right." She glanced at her clipboard. "You'll be in data support. Row C, don't be late for the team briefing." She walked away before he could respond. At the briefing, Daniel sat near the back. He listened carefully, taking small notes. Brenda led the meeting with energy and confidence. She was good at her job, he could see that. But he also noticed the way she spoke to certain people, quick, cutting, a little impatient. Especially toward those she had already decided didn't matter. After the meeting, one of the other employees leaned over to Daniel. His name was Tom, a round-faced man with a kind smile. "Don't take it personally," Tom whispered. "She's like that with temps. Best to stay quiet and invisible." Daniel just nodded and turned back to his screen. Staying invisible turned out to be harder than expected. 3 days in, Brenda called him into her office. She had found an error in a data report, a small one, but she laid it on the table like it was evidence of something much worse. "This kind of careless work is not what we expect here," she said. "Even for temporary staff." Daniel looked at the report. He looked at the error. Then he quietly pointed out that the mistake was in the template that had been given to him, not in the data he had entered. Brenda's expression didn't change. "Regardless," she said, "figure it out." That evening, Daniel picked up Lily from after-school care. She ran to him and hugged his leg the way she always did, like she was afraid he might float away if she let go. "Good day?" he asked. "Okay," she said. "Emma said my lunchbox is babyish." "Is it?" Lily looked up at him seriously. "It has dinosaurs on it." "Dinosaurs are great." "That's what I said." He laughed, really laughed, for the first time that day. He held her hand as they walked to the bus stop, and for a few minutes, the office and Brenda and cold reports all felt very far away. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something at that office was quietly wrong. Over the next 2 weeks, Daniel watched carefully. He saw things Brenda would never have noticed him noticing. He saw how the best ideas in team meetings were ignored when they came from the junior staff, but praised when Brenda repeated them as her own minutes later. He saw Tom working through lunch every day to cover for a team that was quietly understaffed. He saw a young woman named Patricia, talented, meticulous, passed over for a small project lead role without explanation. He also saw how hard everyone worked, and how little of that effort was ever acknowledged. He sent quiet notes to Marcus. Not complaints. Just observations. Marcus responded with short replies, "Keep watching. We need the full picture." Meanwhile, Brenda made little effort to hide her impatience with Daniel. In a staff lunch, she made a comment about people who coast on temporary contracts, loud enough for the table to hear. A few people laughed awkwardly. Patricia looked at her plate. Tom caught Daniel's eye across the table and gave a small, apologetic shrug. After lunch, Patricia stopped him in the hallway. "I'm sorry about that," she said. "She's not like that with everyone." "Just with people she thinks don't matter?" Daniel asked. Patricia paused. Then she said, honestly, "Yeah. Pretty much." Daniel nodded slowly. "It's okay," he said. "I've learned a lot here." She didn't know yet what he meant by that. On a Friday afternoon, something small happened that changed everything. Lily's school called. There was a small incident, nothing serious, just a fall in the playground. She was fine, but shaken. Could someone come? Daniel asked Brenda if he could leave 30 minutes early. Brenda looked at him with the particular expression she reserved for requests she found inconvenient. "We have an end-of-week report to finish," she said. "I understand. My daughter was hurt at school. I'll finish the report remotely tonight." "That's not really how we do things here." "She's 7, Daniel said. And she's alone." Brenda sighed as if this were a personal inconvenience to her. "Fine. But this is noted." He left. He got to the school in 20 minutes. Lily was sitting in the nurse's office with a small bandage on her knee, holding a paper cup of water with both hands. When she saw him, her face crumpled. Not from pain. From relief. He sat beside her and put his arm around her small shoulders. "I've got you," he said. "I know," she said, and leaned against him. That night, after she was asleep, Daniel sat at his kitchen table for a long time. He thought about Brenda. He thought about Patricia and Tom and the dozen other people in that office who came in every day and gave their best to a place that treated some of them as though they were invisible. He made a decision. The following Monday, Daniel called Marcus. "I've seen enough," he said. "And?" Marcus asked. "The office has real potential. The core team is good, better than good. But there are serious problems with how it's being managed. People are being overlooked. The culture is off. If we don't fix it, we'll lose the best people within a year." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "What do you want to do?" "I want to step in. Officially. You're ready. Daniel looked at Lily's drawing on the refrigerator. A picture of the two of them, stick figures holding hands under a yellow sun. Underneath, in uneven letters, she had written, "Me and Daddy. We are okay." "Yeah," he said. "I'm ready." The paperwork took a few days. Marcus made arrangements quietly. A company-wide message was prepared. An announcement was scheduled for that Thursday. Daniel went in on Tuesday and Wednesday as usual. He answered emails, submitted reports, said good morning to Tom. Nobody noticed anything different. On Wednesday evening, Patricia mentioned that she had heard a rumor, someone from the parent company was coming in to do a review. "Do you think it means layoffs?" she asked, worried. "I don't think so," Daniel said carefully. "I think it means change." She didn't look convinced. But she nodded and went back to her desk. Thursday morning arrived gray and cool. At 9 o'clock, the entire regional office was called into the main conference room. Brenda stood at the front, looking polished and confident. She had clearly been told that a company representative was arriving, and she had prepared herself to make an impression. She had not been told who that representative was. The door opened. Daniel walked in. He was wearing the same kind of plain clothes he always wore. But beside him walked Marcus, and behind them, two members of the Nova board. The room went very still. Brenda's expression moved through several things in quick succession: confusion, recognition, and then something close to alarm. Marcus stepped forward. "Good morning, everyone. Most of you know me as Marcus Webb, managing partner of Nova Solutions. I want to introduce someone who doesn't need a long speech." He turned. "Daniel Carter. Co-founder. And as of this week, your new regional director." The silence held for 2 full seconds. Then came the quiet sound of people processing what they had just heard. Daniel looked around the room. He saw Tom, wide-eyed. He saw Patricia, completely still, hand over her mouth. He saw Brenda, standing at the front where she had expected to shine, looking like the floor had tilted beneath her. He spoke simply. "I've spent 3 weeks here as a regular employee. I came to understand this office, not from a report, but from the inside. And what I found is a group of people doing genuinely good work, often without enough support or recognition." He paused. "That's going to change." The next hour was uncomfortable in the way that honest things sometimes are. In a private meeting, Daniel sat across from Brenda. She was composed, but barely. "I want to be fair," Daniel said. "You built something here. The systems, the client accounts, that work is real and it matters." Brenda said nothing. "But the way this office is run, the way certain people are treated, that also matters. And it cannot continue." "I didn't know who you were," she said at last. Her voice was tight. Daniel nodded. "I know. But here's the thing, Brenda, it shouldn't have made a difference." She looked away. "You'll stay in a senior role," he said. "But there will be changes. A new structure. Clearer accountability. I'll need to see a real shift in how this team is led." She nodded stiffly. It wasn't a warm moment. But it was an honest one. Afterward, Daniel found Tom and Patricia in the break room. They went quiet when they saw him. "I'm not going to pretend these past few weeks were normal," he said, almost smiling. Tom let out a breath that was half laugh, half relief. "So when you said you'd learned a lot here?" "I meant it." Patricia shook her head slowly. "Why didn't you just tell us?" "Because I needed to see the real thing," Daniel said. "Not the version people put on for the boss." She thought about that. Then she said, "And what did you see?" "People worth keeping," he said. "A place worth fixing." A month later, the office felt different. Not completely. Change doesn't move that fast. But the small things had shifted. Tom was no longer eating lunch at his desk. Patricia had been given the project lead role she had always deserved. The junior staff came to briefings and actually spoke. Daniel still made cold coffee most mornings. Lily still asked too many questions at breakfast. One morning she asked him why he looked happier lately. He thought about it honestly. "I did something hard," he told her. "I went somewhere I didn't know, and I stayed quiet long enough to really understand it. And then, when it was time, I said what needed to be said." Lily ate her toast. "Like when I waited to tell you about Emma's birthday party until the right moment so you wouldn't forget?" Daniel laughed. "Exactly like that." She seemed very pleased with the comparison. That evening he put her to bed, turned off the light and stood in the doorway for a moment. The house was quiet. It wasn't a perfect life, it was sometimes lonely, often exhausting, and built from pieces of something that had broken years ago. But it was real. And it was his. And it was enough. Some people look at a man carrying a lunchbox to a school and see someone ordinary. They never think to wonder what else he might be carrying. What he has survived. What he knows. That is the thing about quiet people. They are often the ones who see everything.